I know many of you are disillusioned, disheartened, numb, broken, traumatized, and largely confused about what is up and what is down with some of the core tenets of your belief systems and the people that you've put expectation in. And that's valid. That's a very valid thing. Many points in my life, I found myself where I was confused about what was up and what was down and who I could trust and where I should put my faith and hope in. And the feeling that you feel right now, whether it's an ache in your soul, whether it's whether it's a thorn in the flesh, whether it's a disappointment, whether it's a broken heart, or even more than that, a trauma response. That's important. That is very important. And it's also important that you don't skip it. Let me say it this way. Don't miss the opportunity to find out what that pain is telling you. Don't bury it. Don't hide it. Don't don't push it away because of its inconvenience to your feelings today. And resist the urge to tell it to go away. Resist the urge to tell it to not speak up anymore. I know so many of us have been conditioned to look and say, the peace of God is available for us. And yes, it is, absolutely. But we fail to recognize that the peace of God and the peace through Jesus came at a tremendous sacrifice, and a sacrifice in which Jesus was willing to endure. And I don't want us to skip this moment because we want to get back to status quo. And I definitely don't want us to skip this moment because I don't want us to repeat the reason why we're here, which is so essential. And this is a unique part in our story. And if we get it right now, then we can change the trajectory of our lives. And we can utilize wisdom and discernment on a whole nother level. And we can utilize our redemptive path even more so than we could before. But if we gloss over this and we cast blame upon others and we fail to recognize where we can have ownership, then we have missed our opportunity. Now, let me tell you straight up, holding people relationally accountable and having relational consequences is very different than just pointing the finger at somebody else and saying it was their fault, that's why I feel the way I feel. Ownership is the only way that we're able to move forward. Let me tell you a story about Nero. And I'll try to be quick. I could talk for hours on Nero. Studied him for years. But Nero was a guy who essentially was an actor, and he loved doing plays. He loved performing. He also was an emperor. He was a ruler. And the thing Nero desired to do the most was to perform. He may have been gifted in some things, and commentators about the life of Nero said that if he was a modern day person, he'd belong in a rock band. He loved the stage. He loved attention. He loved reputation. And but Nero was alive at a time where the grace of God was the least amount on the earth, and that's correlated with the death rate. You know how God says in the Old Testament, "My grace is sufficient for 120." Well, the sufficient grace at the time was very, very low. The average life expectancy, I think, was at 21 or 23 years old, the highest. And then if you follow the life expectancy, it only goes after that. It only goes up. But that was the lowest point in history. And then you have this person, Nero, who largely embodied the very opposite of Jesus, the way he ruled and the way he thought. And his entire life was built around the premise of self-fulfilled pleasure and desire, and at the expense of anyone and everyone, including his own family. He ended up eliminating his mother after he took advantage of her in many ways. He eliminated many of his family members, and he would consider it a perfect enjoyment to not only make Christians, a part of a bonfire, but to sexually torment them before he could witness this. So he would sneak out, he'd wear the skins of an animal, and he would go and nip at their private parts, and then he would go and eliminate a few people along the way and come back and have a perfect dinner, and so this was like a regular occurrence for him to explore, torment, I guess, a lifestyle of torment, but to please him. It was for pleasure. And it's pretty twisted. It's really messed up. If you just think of the exact opposite of Jesus, this is what you get in this person. And Nero did this largely because of perversion through domination. And it was through feeling like he was in power. He was powerful. He could dominate people. And the stuff that he did to people was so grotesque and so terrible. Much of what can't be written about in books because it's just so bad. I mean, he's famously known for lighting his entire city on fire and, playing that instrument, watching it burn. I mean, he didn't even care for his own people in that sense. They were all there for his personal enjoyment. And, the lesson in Nero, and I'm skipping an abundant amount of information, but the lesson in Nero and how evil he was is that Nero didn't put himself in charge. People voted Nero in. The people around him, after they got done with their wars and they wanted, they were bloodthirsty and they wanted more, they picked Nero and they put him in charge. And Nero was purely a reflection of what they saw in themselves. And that's why they got Nero. And of course, he's famous for the war games and the killing of Christians. But the person they picked was because he was flashy, he was grandiose, he was polarizing, he was narcissistic, he was outlandish. He was showy. He was everything they wanted in themselves. It was the desire within their heart. And they put their faith and expectation in Nero. And they got what they wanted. See, that's the hard part about the story, is we blame Nero. And we say, look at Nero. Look how terrible he was. But we don't recognize why he was put in charge. And ultimately, there is something within us that allowed not only for our red flags to go unchecked, which I fully accept the red flags in my life that have gone unchecked, where I've seen something, I've discerned something, I've had dreams, I've felt urgency, and I did not act. I ignored it. I squandered it. I put it away. I put it down. But to pick somebody where I'm ignoring the discernment and the wisdom that I have, but yet I'm equally desiring the thing that they're promoting. And I'm not just talking about itinerant ministry. I'm talking about being connected to the system and a process and a man and a lifestyle that is broken. I don't know anything about his character when I follow him. I don't know anything about how he treats his family when I follow him, when I put him up on stage. I don't know about those things. When I sow into his ministry, I don't know who he is. When I go and to hear him speak, and he talks about, God multiplying finances and becoming powerful and famous and God giving inventions overnight, there's something selfish inside of me, although biblical in many cases, something selfish inside of me that wants more, that wants this. And again, I said, although biblical, even the devil presented scriptures. Everything comes with balance, right? There's a self-control in there somewhere. Everything's not for unlimited consumption, if you know what I mean. What in my election of the Neros in my life tells a story about me? And does it reveal to me something that I desire, something that I hid, something that I want that's unhealthy? Perhaps. And my blindedness to continually allow people to speak into my life that I had no idea who they were is largely my fault. The system was set up so that I was to blindly trust them because others said it was okay to. And I did not know them. I allowed them to infiltrate my mind and determine my spiritual beliefs, which, is a mixed bag. Some of it was good, some of it was bad, but the bad, just like the leaven leavens the whole lump, the bad pollutes everything. And I did all this because I put my faith and trust in God, and I became gullible to man. And I'm trying to say this properly. My faith and trust in God was pure. But I allowed men and women, obviously, everyone, I allowed them to not have accountability in my life. I allowed them to not be accountable to their actions. I allowed myself to be trampled upon and ran over. And I did this in the name of turning my face, turning my cheek. I allowed them to alter my actions because I believed in their performances. I hope this is making sense to some people. I'm trying to communicate effectively here. At the end of the day, for those that desire God, and we have men and women that come in the name of God and they disappoint us, the appointment that we set in our heart is off. It's divided. It's a disappointment. That disappointment is not a reflection of God. It's not. And I know it's really hard for some of you to process this, but the disappointment that we have in men and women is purely a reflection of them, not God. Think about it for a second. You go through something very difficult in life, and the only person that could possibly relate to you before, during, and afterwards is God. And if you blame God, you don't understand God. But if you reject God, then you're losing out on the most helpful and relatable person in your life. You're saying no to the help. So for many of you, if you're simply looking for a reason to not believe, you've got a million of them. You'll always have them. But for those that have been accepting of God and his people, it's beautiful. And now you're going through relational trauma because you've got to reorient yourself around who can be trusted. And I think that's fantastic. And hopefully you're able to hope and pray into a system which requires relational process and relational accountability. If you're going to have somebody speak on your platform, you better know them. You better know who's on their board. You better ask their staff what it's like to work with this person. You better capitalize on every red flag that you have and pursue it and test it and purify it and make sure that your discernment is not thrown to the wayside because this person is popular. Just because someone comes in the name of the Lord does not mean they have the fullest and purest intention. If you look back over time, everyone is trying to piggyback off of Jesus to get power and influence. And the thing that Nero wanted most was a feeling of domination and power. And they're willing to do everything they possibly can to get it, including lie and manipulate and coerce. And so we need to be ever more diligent to protect ourselves and to protect our minds against those that come and they wear the skins of dead animals and they live fractured lives where they got multiple identities. We have to be way more structured in our process to not just allow anyone and everyone to speak into our lives. If you make a financial contribution to a ministry, you're in covenant with them. And you're sowing into the fruit of their life, good and bad. If you buy someone's books, you're partnering with them. If you open up your eyes and your ears to who they are, you're opening yourself up to the overflow of their heart. It's very important. And so I close in saying this. As evil as Nero was, the desire for him to be in power and the desire for him to reign and do what he did came from the people. If the people wanted something else, someone else, if they wanted someone of balance, if they wanted someone with relational accountability, if they wanted someone with love, if they wanted someone with transparency, if they wanted someone with purity, if they wanted someone with righteousness, if they wanted someone with holiness, then that's who they would have elected. So, it sounds weird to say this, but don't blame Nero for the personal accountability that we can accept. Because the desires of our heart will always produce the thing that we see. And today we're experiencing the pain of that. Thank you so much.